I stared at the glowing screen, my thumb hovering, my mind refusing to believe what I was reading. "Don't come to Thanksgiving, your sister's in charge this year," the text said. My parents' words. My chest tightened, my breath stuttered. It wasn't just a cancellation. It was exile. For a moment, I thought maybe I misread it. Maybe it was a joke. But no, my mother's typing bubble appeared below the message. "She feels you make things complicated. It's better this way." Complicated? The laughter in my throat came out broken, bitter. Complicated was what I felt when I found Dad's hospital bills stacked like mountains, final notices printed in red. Complicated was when the bank threatened to seize their house, when Mom whispered about selling her wedding ring. Complicated was the night I sat hunched over my laptop, transferring every last dime of my savings, my hard-won savings, to wipe out their debts. But no, apparently I was the problem. I grew up the second child. My sister, Nicole, was the golden one, at least in my parents' eyes. Everything she touched turned into applause. In high school, her theater awards lined the mantle. In college, her social media followers swelled as she posted glamorous photos, each one earning comments like, "You're amazing, Nicole." Meanwhile, I stayed in the background, the quieter one, the steady one. I wasn't dazzling, but I was dependable. When Dad's back injury left him bedridden, I worked double shifts to cover groceries. When Mom's hours got cut at the clinic, I paid the electric bill. And when the creditors came knocking, it wasn't Nicole they called. It was me. "Don't come to Thanksgiving." The words sliced deeper the longer I stared at them. I wanted to scream, "Are you serious?" I wanted to type, "After everything I've done for you?" But my fingers shook. I dropped the phone onto the counter, as though it burned. The kitchen around me blurred. The hum of the fridge, the faint smell of yesterday's coffee grounds, even the autumn light pouring through the blinds. I felt none of it. Just the sting of betrayal. My phone buzzed again. Nicole this time. "Hey, just so you know, I'm planning Thanksgiving this year. Mom and Dad told me they already talked to you. Don't make it a big deal, okay? We'll FaceTime you during dessert, smiley face, FaceTime me." Like I was some distant cousin. Like I wasn't the one who had bailed them out of ruin. I typed, "Are you kidding me?" but deleted it. What would be the point? Nicole lived in a world where everything bent to her will. I clenched my jaw, closing my eyes. I should tell you something, my parents weren't bad people. At least, I don't think they meant to be. But love has a way of tipping scales, and mine were always tipped toward Nicole. Once, when I was 12, I won a small art competition. I remember running home, waving the certificate, heart pounding with pride. Dad barely looked up from the paper. "That's nice. Did Nicole tell you she's going to regionals for choir?" My joy had deflated like a punctured balloon. That's how it always was. My wins were side notes. Nicole's were headlines. So maybe I shouldn't have been surprised by that text. Maybe deep down, I knew my place had never been at the center of the table. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Thanksgiving table, the one with the orange tablecloth, the candles, the turkey steaming at the center. I saw my parents laughing, Nicole raising her glass, everyone together, except me. I imagined them carving slices of pumpkin pie while my face flickered awkwardly on a phone screen propped up between salt shakers. It felt like erasure. And maybe it was the final push I needed. Because that night, I made a decision. If my parents and sister wanted a Thanksgiving without me, fine. Let them have it. But I wasn't going to fade into the background anymore. No more paying debts in silence. No more swallowing bitterness. This year, I'd create my own Thanksgiving. My own table. My own story. And maybe, just maybe, they'd realize what they'd lost. The next morning I woke up with my head pounding, not from lack of sleep alone but from the heavy truth pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. the truth that my family had dismissed me as though I were disposable, as though everything I had given had been invisible. The air felt different, sharper, as if even the sunlight filtering through my blinds was trying to prod me awake, telling me to do something instead of wallowing. So I did. I dragged myself to the kitchen, brewed coffee stronger than I could stomach, and sat down at the table with a blank notebook. If they didn't want me at Thanksgiving, I'd make my own. But not just a quiet, lonely dinner. No, I wanted something vibrant, something that made me feel alive, something that reminded me that family isn't always blood. As the coffee warmed my throat, I began jotting names, people I had pushed aside because I'd been so consumed with my parents' problems, co-workers who had invited me out but I declined, neighbors who always smiled when I brought in their mail, even old college friends whose texts I never answered because I was always too tired from bailing out mom and dad. I realized, as the list grew, that I had more people than I thought. Maybe they weren't perfect or close, but they were people who saw me for me, not for how I compared to Nicole. For the first time in months, a spark flickered in me. That night, I started sending messages, not desperate invitations but warm ones. Hey, I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year, would love if you came. I braced for silence, maybe polite excuses, but slowly replies trickled back. That sounds amazing. Are you serious? Count me in. I didn't have anywhere to go this year, thank you. Each yes was like a small stone added to the foundation of something bigger. For once, I wasn't the afterthought. I was the center. But with every yes came a flicker of fear. What if I failed? What if my parents and Nicole were right, that I was complicated, that I didn't belong at the head of a table? My chest tightened, but then I pushed the fear down. They'd already taken enough from me, my money, my peace, my sense of worth. They weren't going to take this too. A week passed, then another. Grocery lists multiplied, recipes printed out, decorations borrowed from neighbors, and slowly my small apartment began to transform. The table wasn't as big as my parents', but I extended it with borrowed folding tables, covered everything with mismatched cloths, candles, paper turkeys made by the kids of a neighbor who insisted I take them. My fridge was packed to bursting with ingredients. And somewhere in the middle of all the planning, I caught myself smiling. Not the polite smile I wore around my parents, not the tight-lipped grin I gave at Nicole's endless stories, but a real one, unguarded, messy, alive. Still, the silence from my parents was deafening. No follow-up texts, no calls. Nicole posted a photo on Instagram, the dining room back at my parents' house, already decorated with string lights and centerpieces, captioned, "Can't wait for the perfect family Thanksgiving red heart fallen leaf dot." Perfect family. The words twisted in my gut. Was I no longer family? One evening, as I basted a test turkey recipe, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Dad. For a second my chest leapt, maybe he was reaching out, maybe he'd changed his mind. But the message was short. Don't stir up drama. Let your sister handle it. She knows how to make people happy. My hand shook, the phone slick in my palm. Knows how to make people happy. The irony nearly knocked me over. Was paying their debts not happiness? Was saving their home not happiness? But I didn't reply. I slid the phone onto the counter and went back to the turkey, blinking hard against the tears stinging my eyes. If they couldn't see me, I'd make sure others could. The day of Thanksgiving arrived like a storm. My apartment buzzed with voices, laughter echoing down the hallway before guests even stepped through the door. My coworker Jenna came carrying 2 pies, my neighbor brought stuffing, my college friend Marco walked in with a bottle of wine, and soon the place was overflowing with warmth. We dragged out every chair, even a couple of crates covered with cushions, and still people squeezed in shoulder to shoulder. My heart raced as I moved around the kitchen, serving plates, checking the oven, making sure everyone had something to drink. It was chaos, but it was beautiful. And then, in the middle of it all, I caught my reflection in the darkened window. Hair frizzed from the oven heat, apron smeared with gravy, eyes wide and alive. I looked happy. Really happy. Not because I was proving something, but because I was finally surrounded by people who chose me, not out of obligation but out of genuine care. "This is incredible," Jenna said, raising her glass across the table. "To the best Thanksgiving I've ever had." Everyone cheered, glasses clinking, and warmth spread through me like sunlight. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. And then, just as laughter filled the room, my phone buzzed again. A FaceTime request. From Nicole. My chest went cold. I ignored it. Seconds later, another buzz. Then a text, "We're all here, say hi." My stomach twisted. Were they calling out of guilt? To show me what I was missing? Or maybe to rub it in? I set the phone down, heart pounding. But then another text appeared, this one from Mom, "We're sorry. We should have invited you." My breath caught. The phone buzzed again, Nicole's FaceTime request still glowing. Around me, my new Thanksgiving family laughed, voices rising in joy, plates clattering. And I realized in that moment I had a choice, to answer, to try to squeeze myself back into a space that never truly welcomed me. Or to stay here, present, whole, at the table I had built with my own hands. I stared at the screen as Nicole's FaceTime request pulsed like a heartbeat, relentless, demanding, the tiny preview of my own uncertain face reflecting back at me, caught between two worlds, one that had discarded me and one that was finally embracing me. My thumb hovered over the accept button, but the weight in my chest grew heavier, pressing, suffocating. Mom's text replayed in my head, "We're sorry. We should have invited you." Too late, I thought, the words almost spilling out loud. Too late because apologies after exile feel more like excuses than love. Too late because I had begged in silence for years for them to see me, and they had looked right past. Too late because tonight, for once, I didn't feel small. The guests around me didn't even notice my stillness, laughter spilling like music, Jenna telling some story about burning her first turkey, Marco chiming in with dramatic hand gestures that had everyone clutching their stomachs with laughter. It was warm, alive, messy, and real. I slipped the phone face down onto the counter and took a deep breath. But the buzzing wouldn't stop, Nicole calling again, relentless, until finally Jenna leaned over, whispering, "You want me to grab that?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "It's fine." But my pulse raced. Because I knew my family. Nicole didn't call out of kindness. She called to control the story. If I didn't answer, she'd tell everyone I was bitter, dramatic, the one who ruined Thanksgiving. And maybe part of me still longed, desperately, to be included. With a shaky hand, I swiped to accept. Nicole's face filled the screen, perfectly made up, hair shining under soft golden light. Behind her the dining room glowed with candles, my parents visible in the background, their table pristine, everything staged for perfection. "There she is," Nicole sang, her voice dripping with practiced cheer. "Say hi, everyone. Look, she's celebrating too." She angled the phone, giving them a glimpse of the laughter in my own apartment, the people gathered around me. For a moment there was silence, and I swear I saw my father's jaw tighten, my mother's smile falter, just slightly, as though they hadn't expected me to be okay. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom said finally, her tone fragile, careful. "Happy Thanksgiving." My throat tightened, but before I could reply, Nicole jumped in, "We just wanted to show you how beautiful everything turned out here." "Didn't it, Mom? Didn't it, Dad?" She turned the camera to the table, the turkey gleaming, the glasses crystal clear, everything flawless. "It's perfect," Mom agreed softly. Dad just gave a nod. I forced a smile, but something inside me cracked. It was a performance. That's what this was. They wanted me to see what I was missing, to feel small again. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling but steady enough. "Looks nice. We're having a good one here too." I turned my phone slightly, showing my crowded little apartment, the people shoulder to shoulder, plates messy, wine flowing, laughter genuine. "It's not perfect, but it's real." I caught Nicole's smile freeze, just for a fraction, before she masked it with another giggle. Well, that's great. We just didn't want you to feel left out. But her eyes betrayed her, calculating, measuring, realizing maybe for the first time that I didn't need their table anymore. Then my father spoke, his voice low, rough. You should have been here. It wasn't warmth in his tone, though, it was accusation, as if I had chosen to leave, as if I hadn't been told not to come. My chest burned, and before I could stop myself the words burst out. You told me not to. You told me Nicole was in charge. You told me I was complicated. Do you know what that did to me? The table behind me had quieted, my guests catching the sharp edge in my voice, but I couldn't stop now, years of silence rising like a tide. I paid your bills. I saved your house. I gave up everything I'd saved for myself because I thought maybe, just maybe, it would mean I mattered. And still, you chose her. My father's face hardened, my mother looked away, and Nicole opened her mouth but for once had no words. The silence on their end was deafening. I felt my hands shake, but instead of shrinking I lifted my chin. I don't need your perfect table anymore. I have my own. And with that, I hung up. The room was still for a beat, my heart hammering so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Then Marco broke the silence with a dramatic clap, grinning. Now that's what I call carving the turkey. Laughter erupted, tension breaking, and suddenly everyone was raising glasses, cheering, voices overlapping. Warmth surged through me, a rush of something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. My phone buzzed again, messages piling, Nicole's angry texts, Mom's pleading ones, but I didn't look. Not tonight. Tonight, I belonged at my own table. And as I leaned back, watching the people around me, their faces bright and alive, I realized the twist I hadn't expected. Losing my family had given me the chance to build a new one. A family that chose me. The morning after Thanksgiving I woke to the smell of leftovers and the echo of laughter still clinging to my walls like a warm aftertaste. The apartment quiet now, but not empty, not hollow the way it used to feel after family gatherings where I came home drained and unseen. Plates stacked in the sink, half a pie left on the counter, a forgotten sweater draped over a chair. The kind of mess that told me people had been here, that life had happened. For the first time in years I didn't feel like I was chasing approval that kept slipping through my fingers. But the peace didn't last long. My phone blinked with notifications, dozens of them, Nicole's texts sharp and relentless. How dare you embarrass us? You ruined Thanksgiving. Dad is furious. Then my mother's softer but still pleading ones, please call me. We didn't mean it like that. Family should forgive. I stared at the screen, my chest tight but my mind strangely calm. Once, those words would have shattered me, sent me spiraling into apologies, desperate to make things right, desperate to win back scraps of love. But now, after last night, I saw them differently. They weren't apologies, not really. They were attempts to reel me back into a role I no longer wanted to play. I set the phone face down and brewed coffee, listening to the gentle drip, breathing in the steady rhythm. A knock at the door startled me. When I opened it, my neighbor Mrs. Alvarez stood there with a container in her hands. You forgot this, she said, pressing the container of stuffing into mine. Her eyes twinkled. And I just wanted to say, thank you. That was the best Thanksgiving my grandkids have had in years. My throat tightened. I'm glad you came, I whispered. She patted my hand. Sometimes family is who shows up. Remember that. And just like that she left, her words heavier than any lecture my parents had ever given. I carried them with me all day, as I cleaned, as I packed away food, as I replayed the night in my head. The joy, the freedom, the choice. But still, under it all, a flicker of grief burned. Because no matter how much strength I felt, part of me still longed for my parents' love, still wished they could see me without comparing me to Nicole. That evening, unable to resist, I called Mom. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick. Oh, thank God. Honey, please, your father, I cut her off gently. Mom, stop. I can't keep doing this. You hurt me. You told me not to come, and when I built something for myself, you made me feel like I ruined yours. Do you even hear how unfair that is? Silence crackled on the line. Then a soft sniffle. We thought Nicole, she always wants the spotlight. And you're so strong. We thought you didn't need it. The words sliced through me. Didn't need it? I almost laughed, bitter and raw. Everyone needs to be seen, Mom. Even me. Her breath hitched, and for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, she understood. But then her voice lowered. Your father won't forgive you unless you apologize. The last thread snapped. I closed my eyes, tears sliding hot down my face. Then maybe he'll never forgive me. Because I'm done apologizing for existing. And I hung up. The sobs came after, sudden, unstoppable, grief pouring out like it had been dammed up for years. But when they subsided, when the quiet returned, I felt something else beneath the ache, relief. I was no longer begging at a locked door. I was walking away from it. In the weeks that followed, the messages slowed, then stopped. Nicole posted glittering photos of her perfect holidays. My parents appeared in them smiling tightly, and the silence between us stretched long and cold. But in that space, new warmth grew. My little Thanksgiving turned into weekly dinners, neighbors bringing dishes, coworkers stopping by, laughter filling the rooms that had once been so still. On New Year's Eve, my apartment was crowded again, music blasting, people dancing, and I realized with a start that I hadn't thought of Nicole or my parents in days. I was building a life, brick by brick, not around their approval but around my own worth. And maybe one day, maybe, they'd see what they'd lost. But even if they never did, I had found something more valuable. I had found myself. Spring came quietly, the kind of soft mornings where the air smelled like rain and the trees outside my window were laced with green again, and by then the ache of Thanksgiving had dulled into something more like a scar than an open wound, still there but no longer bleeding every time I thought about it. Life had moved forward in ways I never expected. My dinners had turned into a tradition, my circle of friends had deepened, even work felt lighter because I wasn't carrying the invisible weight of debts and disappointments on my back. One Saturday, while I was at the market buying fresh bread and flowers for the table, I saw Nicole. She was by the fruit stand, sunglasses perched on her head, her cart filled with organic cheeses and imported chocolates. For a moment I froze, instinctively bracing for the familiar sting, but when she spotted me her face flickered with something I couldn't read, surprise, discomfort, maybe even shame. Hey, she said, her voice too bright. It's been a while. I nodded. Yeah. Silence stretched between us, thick and awkward. She shifted, then finally blurted, Mom misses you. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I miss her too. But I can't keep showing up to be treated like I don't exist. Nicole flinched, her eyes dropping. I didn't mean for things to get so bad, she whispered. They always push me forward, you know. It wasn't my choice. For the first time I heard cracks in her confidence, the edges of someone who maybe wasn't as invincible as she pretended. I sighed. It wasn't all your fault. But it hurt. She nodded, biting her lip, and for once she didn't have a comeback. She just looked human. We parted without promises, just a quiet, uneasy truce, and as I walked away I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means letting go of the grip the past has on you. Months later, on Thanksgiving again, I hosted another dinner, bigger than the last, tables spilling into the hallway because there wasn't enough room, kids chasing each other with paper pilgrim hats, laughter rising until the walls seemed too small to contain it. And somewhere between passing the mashed potatoes and pouring the wine, my phone buzzed. A photo from Mom. No words, just a picture of their table, this time with an empty chair at the head. I stared at it, my throat tightening, but instead of grief I felt something different, an understanding that maybe, finally, they were beginning to notice the space I had left behind. I didn't reply. I just set the phone down, raised my glass to the people around me, and said, to family, the kind we make, and the kind we grow into. Glasses clinked, voices cheered, and in that moment I knew the story wasn't about what I had lost but about what I had built. I was no longer waiting for a seat at their table. I had carved out my own, and it was full.